Warning. The opinions expressed in this program are those of the presenter in their current state of mind, which they have the right to change at any given moment. The iRant Network and the members of the Ranters Union are not responsible for any claims made. All opinions and train of thoughts are welcomed here and protected by the First Amendment and the Ranters Union. All commentary, criticism, news reporting, research, teaching, and or scholarship of copyrighted material is protected by the Fair Use Act under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. iRant Network and the founder of the Ranters Union, Logic, aka Mr. M, recommends that you take what is said and do your own research. Read a goddamn book and form your own opinion. Furthermore, listen carefully to the ranters rant and debate their opinions and form your own conclusion. Thank you for watching this member-supported program, powered by the Ranters Union and produced for the iRant Network. Good day.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the spot, the Stack After Hours spot. I am your host, Natalie Cosby, and welcome to the show for Grown Folks Talk. Tonight, we are having our first all male panel, Black Masculinity Uncovered. So brothers are going to be unpacking a whole lot tonight, from the vulnerability to what they see in relationships to it all. So I'm just here as the co-host and a moderator, but yeah, they will be really dropping the jewels. So y'all ready? Get your cocktails and those fingertips loose, because we want to hear from you, your questions and comments on tonight's show. So here at SI, we keep it lit and enlightening. So let's get into it. Take us there, Logic. Wow. All right. Look at all these fine brothers up on the show. Wow. Okay. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So let me introduce my co-host. He's my partner in crime. He's a business analyst at IBM. And I call him the stacked voice of reason, Mr. Keith Walker.
So what's up, y'all?
Keith? Hello.
How y'all doing?
Hey, everybody.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Yes. Next, he's back, comedian, writer for D.L. Hughley, life coach, and just a whole lot of personality, got a whole lot to say. Mr. Jeff Brown. Say hello, Jeff.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? What's going on?
Thank you. New to the show, he is a mini mogul, the owner of Bias and Leon, and he is our young voice of reason, Mr. Ronnie Bias. Say hello, Ronnie.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Great. Also new to the show, he is a doctor and gives us a different perspective on masculinity, Dr. Sylvester Foote. Say hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Thank you. And then finally, he is a professor at Joe and Keller, African American Studies and Anthropology at the University of Maryland. And he just released a documentary last year, Life After the Gunshot. Dr. Joseph Richardson.
How y'all doing? Good evening.
All right, guys. So tonight, when we came up with this whole concept, it was based off our self-love show that we did last season. So I thought, let's really talk about Black men and their masculinity and how it has been portrayed in their journey from vulnerability to even relationships. So I wanted to first give a definition of masculinity before we talk about Black masculinity. So the Webster's definition of masculinity is the quality or nature of the male sex, the quality and state or degree of being masculine or manly. So let's really talk about, what does Black masculinity mean to you? And I'm going to start with Ronnie, because I feel like he's in the throes of it right now. I'm not saying that y'all are not, but.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead, Ronnie.
I guess I give y'all my age. I'm 32, still figuring shit out. Can you curse on here? No?
Yes, you can, honey.
I'm like,
This is
Y'all
grown
fucked up if
folks.
we can't.
Right, we told you, put the children to bed. Go ahead.
All right, good. But I feel like as I'm getting older, masculinity just in general is just being more honest with myself and like people around me. Like if something hurts my feelings, being able to say, yo, that hurt my feelings, and not feeling like, oh, I gotta just shoulder it, as we learned when we grow, at least for me, growing up as an immigrant household. So for me, I think for me, like seriously, it starts with being honest. And secondly, I would say it starts with being stable, being somebody that like the people in my community, the teams that I lead can rely upon, like just being that plane that flies straight. That's what masculinity means to me.
All right, thank you. Jeff,
Yes, ma'am.
what about you?
Well, first, is anybody else straining their eyes trying to read what that is on that whiteboard upside down and backwards? I was trying to read it. I swear to God, I was trying to get in your business, young man.
That's just a to-do list. Never
Man, I'm
ending.
trying to figure out what you got to do upside down and backwards. Okay, anyway.
Focus, Jeff, focus. Come
Yeah,
on.
thank you, baby. Thank you.
Yes.
Something that a brother said to me, we were at a conference. He said it to the room. He said, a Black man has no idea what Black masculinity looks like, because the most successful Black man you see is a bastardized version of a white man's success. We have no idea what it is to catch the animal that feeds the family. What it is to in our own culture be what it is unmolested. So as an elder, for me, Black masculinity truly is about piecing together what it is the Creator has given me in my experiences, coupled with what I can find from before this, to dispel, to, like my man said, he trying to figure shit out. Boy, it's heavy on my head to be able to give these cats my failures, because I'm 56. I'm out the game. I'm supposed to be advising. So for me, it is the responsibility to be able to advise and guide those who are not necessarily your kin.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Miss Dr. Sylvester Foote, what you think? What you thinking? What's on your mind? Because I know you have a certain perspective. Go ahead.
Well, Black masculinity to me is really about being who you are and being true to yourself. It's not adhering to your socialized cultural beliefs of what a man or a Black man should be and how they should act, but it's really about you, the individual, and being honest with yourself and having the ability to express emotions without any form of limitations.
Okay. All right. I like that. Dr. Richardson, what's your take? I know you've been studying this stuff for years.
You
Come
know
on.
what, though? Despite studying it, what I would say is just to follow up on all the brothers. I think it's just comes down to being comfortable, really comfortable in your own skin and comfortable with your identity and not really caring about what other people think and being comfortable with that. And for Black men, I mean, we come in so many different layers, complexity, nuances. It's hard to say what Black masculinity is because every Black man that I look at could be a definition of that. So
Mm.
I would say, there is no true definition of what Black masculinity looks like because, every brother out here that's on this show as well as this out here that I encounter every day in my everyday dealings with Black men and the work that I do, it's multiple variations of Black masculinity that I pick up on from people. So I couldn't define it to one thing, but I would say, Black masculinity comes down to just being comfortable in your own skin and being confident with that. So
I love that, Joe, because I think especially today, I was thinking about masculinity. Is it even based on gender anymore? Like, is it condensed still to just I think Keith is just like, should we get somebody who's trained? Keith, we talked about it. Should you get somebody
Yeah,
who's
yes.
trained, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, because to Nat's point, based on the definition that we heard, it's always about gender. Masculinity by itself is defined based on a particular gender, but with all the things that we've kind of gone through in our society now, where we're blending gender, so to speak, is it really a gender topic anymore? What is masculinity as it relates to that? So it's an interesting thing. But I kind of want to go back to what some of the guys were just saying real quick and ask a follow-up question. I think, we talked about honesty, we talked about knowing yourself, and then Jojo, you mentioned one of the things that was really interesting, layers. So do you guys feel that masculinity is really layered in our society today?
Anyone can.
Yeah.
Anybody can go for that one.
Well, I don't think it used to be layered, and I am very grateful for the younger generation because they have certainly broken down those barriers. Because quite frankly, they don't give a shit what you think, who they are. They're doing whatever they choose to do and how they choose to do it. Whereas the old school, like myself, the way in which we were socialized when growing up, it was either X or Y, and that could be placed in the form of the chromosomes. So for an individual like myself, Y, you can see the struggles and the problems that I had to go through in order to somewhat establish some form of gender masculinity. But now it's so much easier. You can just
Can you explain
really be yourself.
Can you explain that? What do you mean? The things you had to go through.
Okay,
That's
so things you had to go through is sort of measuring up back to those levels of what society thinks of what masculinity is. And if you don't measure up to that level, then you have failed. You're an outcast. You just did not fit in or belong. And so you sort of grew up always on the outskirts and never truly fitting in.
Okay. All right. Anybody else felt like they were on the outskirts of yeah.
As a nerd, yeah. As a nerd, I grew up, the nerd doesn't get any accolades or cooter until he's grown and all the people who made fun of him are broke.
Yeah.
That's before that.
Yeah.
Nobody's hanging outside the library to screw anybody.
Right.
So if masculinity was how far you could throw or how fast you could run, that was never me. I was always a dude to be, and I grew up in Chicago, rough. And I used to tell dudes, you about to beat me up because your mama would rather have my report card than yours. Now let's get this done. Because I want
So-
to D's, but I put some shit on your mind. So,
Right.
yes, but
So
black.
let's talk because
Yeah,
y'all are
we should
all
examine that.
black intellects, right? Like I think that's the thing. I think like within our culture, I feel like the black intellect sometimes gets muted, especially in their younger years. No.
Oh yes.
Oh, definitely. But
Oh,
but
yes.
I would say, getting back to Sylvester's point in terms of trying to put every black man in, like, neatly fit into a box.
Mhm.
And I think what I'm trying to get at is we don't give black men enough credit for being complex. Like, you can be a nerd, but still be cool as shit, right? So, like, for me growing up in Philly, yeah, you know, I got a PhD, but I think for everybody that knows me, they're like, okay, this dude got a PhD, but still, I can move in any circle, any context. And I think people get it twisted about black men. Like, when you don't fit neatly into the box, they don't know how to define that. And that's still a form of masculinity. And so we're so used to trying to peg somebody and put a label on it, right? But we don't neatly fit into boxes as black men or as people in general. But as black men, because we've had these monolithic stereotypes, we're always trying to fit somebody into, like, he's a nerd or he's a jock or he's a loner. When really they're not mutually exclusive. You could be all of those things at once, right? Sure. All of those things could be intersectional. So we need to get away from that idea that just black men are a monolith, because we're not.
Right, I agree.
Well,
I think that's the beauty of y'all. I when a black man surprises me, I be like, "Oh, you do that, and you can do that, and you speak 4 languages. What? And you a little hood? I love it."
Yes, brother. Okay, let me say yes and. Yes, and we must understand. I'm working on a song about it. This concept that we are not a monolith doesn't count through a scope, a petri dish, or a test tube. We are monoliths in all of that. Oh, you're a monolith when you get pulled over, and you're a monolith when you go to court. So what I think we need to do with the boxes is, and I agree with you, we should disallow the boxes amongst one another. And this may be coming from the fact that I am an extreme pro-black separatist. I really think we need to drop back and heal as a people, and we've never been allowed to do that. We've had to make all of our decisions to include this one, to include this conversation. For the past 400 years, black people's lives have been the first 7 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. So we don't have a comfortable place to look at that. Philly was not the comfortable place that it could have been or should have been, left unmolested, for you to come to that, brother, or me to come to this. And this is not about whining about what happened to us as much as it is trying to find a way to communicate with one another and understand that we are under siege. Not just black masculinity is a great place to shoot at, but black people are under siege, and kind of because of what's happened to black masculinity.
So you guys, go
ahead, Keith.
No, I was going to ask because it was kind of a follow-up question for what we're talking about between it. So do you guys feel that society has given black masculinity the wrong lens? When I say that, meaning that we just talked about how we have layers, and Jeff, you just kind of honed down on one thing, is that from what you sound like you described, those layers aren't really, they don't exist outside of us and how we see ourselves. So how do you guys feel about that in terms of what society views us?
I actually, Keith, I totally agree with that, because if you stop for a moment and think about it, when you envision what a true black masculine man looks like, most of us, the first thing that's going to come to mind is some man in Africa, you know, who is in the jungle and is just masculine and buffed, muscular and is out to save a whole tribe. And
Okay, I'm good with that so far.
we sort of grow up thinking that's what a Black man is supposed to represent, because that's what masculinity is.
Well, what is it?
But can I say something? Has the images, and can we throw up that graphic really quickly, Logic, about just what are these assumptions about Black men, right? Like I just want you guys to kind of let that set for like 10 seconds. And what do you even see within this? And I kind of want to start with Ronnie, because I feel like a lot of these men are probably part of his generation. If you just, because I see these brothers like this in the street all the time in Brooklyn.
Literally, like I've gone to festivals with flowers in my beard. So like cool. That the guy on the end, that'll be me sometimes, and I'm as masculine as they come, you know, in terms of like I guess the American traditional way. I fix cars, I do this, work on houses, all that kind of stuff. But I don't mind, you know, having flowers in my hair or wearing tight pants. Would I wear a skirt? It's not for me, but do I knock it on someone else? No. And I think we just need to get to the point where we just accept black men accept each other. Because I think it starts with us first. Because if your homies are like, well, that's cool, you're more likely, at least for me, to be more of yourself. And who cares what the world thinks? But if your inner circle, your community really, really gets you, that support is there, I think you can embrace more of whatever sort of Black male masculinity you want to exude. I think that it doesn't necessarily change, if I'm making sense.
That makes sense, brother.
Do any of these images make any of you guys a little uncomfortable, or like if there was any trigger that just kind of came up in your mind, what was it? Really?
They make me sad.
It makes you sad.
They make me sad.
Wow. Why?
Because if you go to Korea or Russia or China, you know, the three big enemies of ours, their young men are being driven toward masculinity in the very basic sense of the word. And again, I'm 56. If I live to be 112, I'm halfway done. My thinking is old, and whatever is going on will be complete by the time I die. But I don't like it.
Okay. All right. Jojo,
can I push back on one thing?
Sure.
In terms of like, you know, you brought up some Asian cultures.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at, like, let's say K-pop or, you know, Chinese pop stars, they're not the most masculine of masculine. You know what I mean? So
which is why they've been taken down. But go ahead.
No, don't get me wrong. I understand that the government's pushing against that, but I do think culturally, societally, the people of my generation are pushing against those gender norms, you know, those stereotypical norms. So I say, yeah, the quote unquote government is cracking down. Like, so you're on the side of basically the Communist Party. You know what I mean?
Well,
in terms
no,
of
actually,
people expressing their freedom.
Actually, I'm on this side.
Okay.
It's 2 a.m. and I hear a noise downstairs. Somehow, and again, this is not to say that pushing the societal norms is not supposed. Yeah, let me go in another direction. I'm not saying this is not supposed to happen. We are entering into the age of Aquarius, where a lot of things are gone.
But Jeff,
can
I say something? I think as Black people, we've always had to push the societal norms. No? I mean, when I think about it, we've tried to fit into a societal norm, and it's never worked for us.
Well,
so my question and this is a question to all the brothers. I think that's the thing. Look, let me say this. Prince was my biggest fan. As Ted dressed, blouses are a trigger. That Negro
about
was one of the most masculine men I could ever.
Can I just respond to that about the blouse?
Go ahead.
Comment? Because you got to bear in mind, it may be a trigger for you, but at the end of the day, compare that same brother in the blouse and in that skirt. That brother probably has more confidence than your man at home. Because do you know what it takes to go out in general public dressed like that and being confident to present yourself to the whole world?
Yes, it takes the absence of a masculine image in your home and in your cousin's home and in your friend's home. We are going to have to not hurdle the fact. I say this to sisters who all the time, I can raise a man by myself. Well, then you got to take a piece of the street because those are the boys you raised. I can't, and I could, but I'll have to be quiet after this. I can't sit here and pretend that the concept of incarcerating our men, emasculating them, pushing them from the home has not had an effect on the female influence on males. And again, it could be because I'm 56, could be because I'm a Marine, could be because I'm from the South Side of Chicago in the 70s. Mix that pot together. But I am not going to leave this conversation feeling like I do now like a dude in a dress that has nothing to tell me about where a kilt comes from. Because that's not where he got that influence.
Okay. All right. Jojo, I feel like in dealing with your work and everything, I'm really curious just your thoughts on how culture has changed now. And I think you and Jeff are probably closer in age.
It's tremendously, like, we just finished running a group with 7 brothers from Baltimore that's all been hit. Shout out to them. Shout out to everybody that I work with. And it's just interesting to hear where brothers are coming from in terms of, how they see themselves as men and the things that they feel make them vulnerable. And a lot of it, is being driven by what we see now on social media. And I think there's a lot of unrealistic expectations and images that are out there in social media that are driving men to think like, this is what I need to have. And if I don't have this like immediately, then I need to go out somewhere and take it from somebody, right? And so now we see that, which is a lot of it why we're seeing this image of masculinity is what's driving a lot of the gun violence that we see happen in America across the country. I mean, we in major cities, we've seen spikes in gun violence by like 30%. And so hearing young brothers describe what they're going through and what they think, how they think a man is supposed to be defined, and the lack of access to older men is really what I see as a challenge too, because as the brother just noted, you had a whole generation of men that were taken out of households and communities. And a lot of these young brothers, not to their own fault, like they were raising themselves out here. And so by the time you have somebody doing 20 years, 25 years, they basically missed an entire generation or two of being out here to provide wisdom and knowledge to these young guys that are coming up. So a lot of young brothers are raising themselves. And, I can't fault them for that. And then a lot of that falls on their mothers, right? And so we have to acknowledge, like, there are structural forces that have played a role in taking men out the way. And it's unfortunate when I hear like a 26-year-old guy, like we were in a neighborhood in Southeast over the summer shooting something called My Hood. And shout out to my young dude, Ro. Like, he's 26 years old and he's the old head in his crew.
Yeah.
Youch.
Like, you shouldn't be 26 and you're like the old head.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's Lord of the Flies.
That's crazy. Like, I didn't grow up with that. I grew up in a neighborhood where like the old head was 40, 50, where I am right now.
Yeah.
Right? There were old heads in my neighborhood. So when you have a crew where it's just like there are no rules, like there are no rules in the street now. That's another thing. Like the rules that I grew up with, the rules that dictated how you might interact with a woman, when you decide that you are going to engage in a fight, all of the things that there were unspoken rules, those rules are gone. So when you go,
Ain't no woman supposed to pump no gas.
when you so when you go ask a young brother like, what's the rules, and the young brother's like, there are no rules out here, and that comes from the destruction of taking men out of the community, and why we're in such a state of disarray. So, we had to address those issues too.
So I want to move into, let's talk about y'all's vulnerability a little bit, because I think that is a space that I feel like Black men don't always get to explore. And it starts as a Black woman, we see it and feel it. But before we go into relationships, I really want to talk about and unpack a little bit of that. And I do want to, and I thought this quote from Danny Glover kind of hits home. The struggle, men's struggle is with masculinity so much. And the idea, I can't read right now, the idea that we must always be strong really presses us down, and it keeps us from growing. So let's just thoughts about that. And I'm gonna let anybody take that on.
Well, it kind of reminds me of something my son, who's 15 now, said when he was 5. And I had to drop a tear. He said, "Daddy, big boys cry, but they don't whine, huh?"
Facts. That's facts.
My family, I'll let them see me cry, but I ain't gonna let them see me whine. Think about when you was little and some shit hit the fan. You was cool long as your parents was cool. If your parents shit, you was like, oh shit, they got the driver's license, they got the car, they got it. If they upset, then I know I'm with them. I'm arrogant enough, I'm bold enough to say that my family is with me. It is my job to run right up on danger and die before I let anything happen to them. That's the weight I got to carry as a man. Does that mean that I don't cry? Does that mean that this shit don't get heavy? Does that mean I don't get angry, confused, make mistakes? No, and I let my family know all of that. But do I ever, for a second, let them think that I'm not up to the task? No. If I wasn't up to the task, I shouldn't have screwed and got these kids, and I shouldn't have asked this woman for her hand.
Okay.
That's the gig.
Okay, Jeff. All right. Other elements of, I think the question is like, what makes y'all uncomfortable, and how do you guys deal with that? I'm gonna start with Sylvester on that. What have been your? You were like, oh boy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because this might be a bit deep and may not really, actually may promote another topic on your show. But one of the things that makes me most uncomfortable is dealing with sisters who have got a set agenda where they seem to think that because you don't fit in to their concept of masculinity, that they are going to convert you to what they think it ought to be. And it's the most uncomfortable thing on earth, because I work in an environment with a whole bunch of females. And the moment I walk onto a floor or onto a unit, you can see sisters actually stop and look. And that's fine, because I look back and I'm polite, and admiration works both ways. But when you are going to be blatantly blind and then go through the uncomfortable process of embarrassing yourself to step up to someone in another manner, that's not cool, because then what normally happens is that they step back with this resentment, and then, God forbid, you have to now experience the scorn of a Black woman.
Okay, I'm gonna need a little bit more.
That is deep.
Are you walking with bozo shoes on? What? How do they pick you out, bro? I'm confused. You just told me you walked through a sea of sisters and they had some ridicule. Were you riding a unicycle? Were you walking a giraffe?
Well,
What were you doing?
no, but what happens is that it doesn't happen with every sister. Please don't misunderstand me. But with a few, there are a few Black sisters out there that when they see a Black man who happens to be gay, seem to think that they can convert them. And it becomes very uncomfortable to the gay individual. That's my point.
Like she got the cure.
Right.
Right.
Got it. Got it.
Gay vaccine.
Yeah.
There's no system.
Bro, you can't keep a straight man with that thing. Stop.
Right.
Oh Lord.
Leave this man alone. Whatever he doing is what he doing, and that ain't none of your damn business. I was gonna give you some really good news, Doc, but this doesn't necessarily apply to you. This actually makes stuff. Well, no, it doesn't make stuff harder for Black women because these dudes wasn't looking at you. No way, sisters. The great news about delusional sisters, is that counting all the men they don't want for all the good reasons they don't want them, there's a 2 million Black woman surplus. That's like being mad at one paper plate in a warehouse full of paper plates.
So I'm not gonna let y'all here and dog the sisters. We're gonna get into relationships. Can we talk about y'all's vulnerability before y'all start just taking us through the mud?
Sure.
I said, like, come on. I gotta stay here for my sisters now. Now,
all of them. You here for all of them?
I didn't
we ain't
say
talking about all of them.
The Wretches Union is cracking me up. Y'all are funny. But let me say, look, I really being because I think that Ted, one of our he's one of our regulars. He had a great coach. He said, being masculine is a pressure for a man. I think the question is, it's just like, when do you guys have the opportunity? Where are those times that you can be comfortable in your vulnerability?
The barbershop.
The barbershop.
Facts.
I heard people call that the Black Man's Country Club.
Yeah, we ain't got no business being let me go and put it where it is. Okay. I take the same advice I give my wife. My love, I know you like talking because you just want to be heard, but I'm a man. That means that you don't want me to take you serious. That's what I hear when you say you just want to talk. So, because I'm a fixer, you have 3 things a month you can talk to me about that I don't fix. The rest of that shit you take to your girlfriend because that's what they're for. I'm not going to sit up and whine about my vulnerabilities and weaknesses to my wife. I will discuss them. I will tell her how they have changed. I will ask for her opinion. But when I want to get deep, I find my boys, I find my brothers, and we get together, we cry together, we smoke weed together, we cuss each other out, we check each other. Hey man, your girl come and told us you ain't taking care of your kids. We done had some of them meetings. But to walk around with my feelings on my sleeve, I would do that, but the Russians are coming.
Okay.
Jeff, you're messed up.
Okay. All these kids that got trophies for showing up are going to be in trouble when they meet the Chinese and Koreans that didn't.
Right. So
I want to actually, Nat, I want to go back to, because I wanted to get Ronnie's perspective from the young brother's side of what is it about being vulnerable? Because I know kind of us old heads and where we are with it. To Jeff's point, a lot of us aren't really vulnerable in front of our woman, but we're more vulnerable in front of our boys or our immediate family. But I wanted to hear your perspective, brother.
To be honest, I'm right there with y'all. Like, growing up like a Haitian kid in New York City, like, you just, whatever, like, my mom was the type of mom was like, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about.
Right.
So,
yep.
Till this day, like, I just broke up with a girl maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and I just couldn't be intimacy. Like, I couldn't get to that point that I can like really share in all the ways that she needed, and it just fell apart. So for me, that's something that I'm still working on. And like, you know, younger folks, I don't know if everybody, but at least for me, I experienced that where it's just like I have a hard time getting through that layer of intimacy where it's like, oh, you see me, you know, I I just can't let somebody get there, like out of the opposite sex. My boy, I have like 1-2 best friends, and they know everything. But women that I date is just hard. It's hard. I don't know why or how I can fix it. You know, I've got a therapist and all that stuff, but it's something that I think it's multi-generational. You know,
Yeah.
You know, and again, I was raised with my pops. I've seen my dad cry. All the things, but I just have a really hard time with it, and I could be honest about that.
As you should.
Facts.
As you should. As much as women want to talk about how much they want to see us cry.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something.
Okay.
I want that wishy-washy ass.
Go ahead, Matt.
It's not about whether I think the thing is, it's just like we want you to be. We are vulnerable in front of you. I think it's a thing of reciprocity. I think that's what we really want. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. I'm just saying, like, I don't know about all, like, me and my wife have some real deep, intimate conversations about things that I might not even discuss with my man. So I can't really agree with that. Like, that depends on your relationship. You know what I'm saying? Different people got different relationships with their lady. But I would say, you know, in terms of vulnerability, like walking around always feeling like you have to have an S on your chest 24 hours a day is not cool. Actually, it's not sustainable. Like, you can't be Superman with a cape on.
I'll be right back. I gotta go pay the bar.
All of your waking hours. And so I would say, you know, and I don't know if you know this, Natalie. Like, if you have met my best friend Chris. Did you ever met?
I remember Chris. Yes, I remember him.
All right, so my best friend in 2018, he died from suicide.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? That was my brother, right? Knew him all my life. Talked to him every day of my life. You know, one day he decides to just grab a gun and kill himself. He's 49 years old. He got an 8-year-old son. He got a wife. But, you know, the pressures in life became too great where he just couldn't take it anymore. He checked out. So, you know, all of that vulnerability walking around and guys walking around like, yeah, you could say you at the shop and it's cool, but the shop is not often the place where you feel like you could be the most vulnerable. Like, we talk about a lot of masculine, let's keep it real. We talk about a lot of masculine things at the shop. And we might talk about bald women, but like real deep emotional shit, nah, we don't be going there really like that. And not in my shop. So I'm saying, like, we need to find somewhere where we feel comfortable to get off our chest, you know, the real vulnerabilities before we end up taking our lives. And what we're seeing right now, you know, in the past 2 or 3 years is the Black male suicide rate is increasing dramatically. And that's just not by coincidence. You know what I'm saying? That's dealing with societal pressures out here where brothers feel like they don't have anywhere to go. And I hear it all the time. Like, the number one thing we talk about in the groups, even though I deal with guys that have been shot, we rarely talk about them being shot. We talk about everything else that has to do with them, like that was stemming from their childhood. And a lot of brothers you see out here, they have adverse childhood experiences. They might have been molested when they was a kid. They never told anybody. They had dysfunctional relationships with their mother that they've never told anybody about. And those things bleed into your relationships when you're older if you never address that. So we gotta get back to you know, adverse childhood experiences too. Because a lot of things that brothers are carrying out here, they didn't start yesterday. They started a long time ago that they never dealt with. And they carrying that around all day. So, you know, the reality is that, you know, we have to find places and spaces where brothers feel vulnerable to talk. Because when I talk to brothers, the main thing they talk about in our groups, not about who they shot or who shot them. It has to do with everything going back to something happened with their mom. They not cool with their mom. They not cool with their father. Somebody might have touched them when they were younger. They didn't tell anybody about it. They got issues with their lady. They want 50% of our conversations be about relationships. I'm like, I thought we was talking about how you got hit. We talking about you and your lady, right? Okay. So, you know, we gotta really be honest about how we're not being vulnerable.
So in support to what you're saying, I just want to add that medically, it's not just suicide that's the problem. There are some other major problems out there. If back to what you said, you can't wear this big S on your chest every day, all the time, because what happens when you do that, it raises your blood pressure. So hypertension becomes a problem. And then there are also other comorbidities. So if you have high blood pressure, it may also raise your blood glucose. But also it affects terribly your coping mechanism because you're not being true to yourself and you have no outlet. So it really breaks your body immunity down. So
Right.
it does affect you medically, not only just suicide. So
Right.
it's very important to seek help and to speak your mind and to express yourself.
Right. That's a concept called weathering. So when you go through fight or flight and you never get to turn your flight mechanism off, your cortisol levels increase, right? Which we know high levels of cortisol create hypertension, which is why people, black men that deal with John Henryism, right? So we got a scale that we give brothers.
What can you say, John Henryism?
Oh, that's a big one.
So the belief that you could literally beat the machine, right? But you'll kill yourself doing it. So we go through life with all of these pressures and stressors that end up affecting our body. And they ultimately create toxic hormones within our bodies that causes our organs to weather, which leads us to have a shorter life expectancy. And that process is called weathering. So I agree with you totally, brother.
Can I hop in there a little bit?
Real quick, Jeff, go ahead.
Okay, I'm 56. I'm plant-based. I have the blood pressure of a 15-year-old and the blood work of a 19-year-old athlete. I'm gonna put some of that on plant-based. I'm gonna put the rest of it on something I suggest for a lot of men and a lot of men younger. Get in touch with your inner asshole. Get in touch with your inner asshole. The individual who will cut. These are, and I'm gonna go somewhere fast with this, Sister Natalie. I'm gonna try.
Go fast because we still got to get to relationships because JoJo really hit on stuff that 50%. Whether you were straight or gay, I think a lot of that stuff was in there. Carry up, come on, Jeff.
Okay, I don't deal with tack brokers really well. These are people who expect you to be nice when they're shitty. I'm not very good at that. I think that keeps my blood pressure down because I speak frankly to everyone. Matter of fact, I don't speak to women like women or men like men. I speak to responsible, rational adults.
Human beings.
Yeah, I don't think your gender, when we start talking about relationship, fuck everybody's gender. We're all adults here. Everybody has screwed somebody they shouldn't have. Everybody has woke up next to somebody and said, oh shit, everybody then went to work with 2 hours of sleep. We're all grown here. So I strongly suggest that this outlet that we need is each other. And I don't want anybody to get it misconstrued that I don't think you should let off pressure. I don't think that's why I smoke so much weed. That's why I meditate. That's I understand that you need an outlet, and there's a time for that. But again, it could be because I'm in my warrior blood.
All right, warrior
gonna need some Zulus.
No, I'm a proponent of plant. It's part of our lifestyle. It's also part of our mental health. I think it's part of understanding as Black people, we have the right to be vulnerable. We have the right to be open like that. And honestly, that's where our innovation and creativity come from if we really tap into that. But I do want to really get into the crux of all of this. And I think, JoJo, you tapped upon it really, is our relationships with whether we are dating men or women and how that starts to play on who we are. Because I think it's also a reflection of each other. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what are you feeling? And JoJo, you really did kind of talk about how you are with your wife. And I kind of want you to just kick it off. Like, where were you before you met your wife, and how did you come into it with her? And what did she give you that you were like, I'm gonna marry her?
Everything that that I had never gotten before in any relationship that I was in. And that was, someone that was just brutally honest, but compassionate at the same time. And I never had somebody that would tell me, and not in a malicious way, but in a more constructive way, things that I needed to check. Like, and honestly, when I sat back and thought about it, I'm like, yo, that was real talk. Like, nobody ever came to me like that. It was always in a more malicious way. And I'm gonna tell you sometimes too, what I had to learn, and I'm still a work in progress, but you can't engage in a conversation waiting to respond. I think a lot of people are already getting their answer together or their response together when they in a debate or argument with a lady. They already waiting to respond. And I think you have to learn. One of the things I had to learn over time is like, you just gotta fall back and listen. Because if you really with somebody that's in your corner, if you really are listening, and it's not about who's going to win, then you got to respect that the person that's telling you this is telling you for a constructive reason. And I had to learn that, and learn even too, like, that when I'm in a and I don't want to say it's an argument, I want to say more of a conversation, but I think my masculine triggers of being raised in my neighborhood, the trigger would take me to the street. So when we would get into something heated, I would always flip in the street mode, and she would tell me like, yo, you bringing the street into the house. And I had to realize that she's like, I'm not your enemy. Like, you rolling with me like we enemies, like we out in the street, like you don't even know me. And I had to fall back, like, I am doing that. Like, I really need to check myself, right? So, I think those were the things that I had to understand and learn about me, and that being with somebody that just makes you an overall better person, because they're honest about when you're doing good and when you're doing bad, and you can take that for what it is. And I had never been in that situation before.
I think that's powerful, Joe.
That
Yeah.
is.
Because one of the questions was the need to put a woman down to lift himself up, or the machismo of it.
Right.
Yeah. Ronnie, you were talking about your recent breakup. What was it? And I know you told me some things about her, but just what have you been, since you are the person that's dating and in the dating scene at this age?
Her in particular, or just dating
Just
in general?
well, because you've been dating across. Y'all are a little bit more open with who you date, and
Yeah.
So
I just, it's not really a cat out the bag. I think one of the reasons why I couldn't be with her, because she was white, and I was like, I kind of want to give my sister.
You want your greens to taste right. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Nah.
You need some grits.
Nah.
You want no orange slices and croutons and pine nuts in your greens?
I'm sorry. Lord have mercy. Come on.
I love sisters, damn it. I'm sorry.
As I thought about it, I was just like, it's not something that I didn't want to do, because she was great, fantastic. A lot of the things Brother Joseph was talking about, she gave that to me. Like, she taught me a lot. But that was a part of it that I just couldn't necessarily get through, along with other things. But that was like top of the list, if I'm being honest. In terms of dating in general, it's a shit show out here. I think, it is a shit show, bro. It's like everyone has the illusion of choice. It's like, just because you see someone on Instagram or Hinge or whatever, you don't have access to that person. That person is not really accessible to you, but people think that they are. So you think that you're like, you have the pick of the litter. No, you don't, bro. Like, you really, really don't. So if you find a good thing, it's like trying to just make that good thing work is something that I can say for sure my generation is just not good at. I hope eventually we all get there, but we're not there yet.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because that was one of the things that this topic for another show, but battling above your weight class. That was one of the things that Natalie always talks about.
Dude,
a lot of men and women both do it. That sometimes we go a little bit ahead of where we really should be, just because we see it's out there doesn't mean it's for us.
True.
Have any of you guys ever? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, real brief. I think I've been with my wife for 11 years. We've been married. It'll be 10. May 3rd, May 19th. Excuse me.
You better get it right, bro. If you're watching
Oh
the show,
no,
you can be dealing with it later.
no, she don't. We don't. That's another thing. We don't count. Now, actually, there's a secret date that we count that we don't tell everybody. That's before that.
All right.
Me and my wife didn't waste a nanosecond with equality. She was never trying to be my equal, and I not hers. If my wife was my equal, we would be fucking doomed. She is so much better at so many other things that I allow her to be better at, and she allows me to do the things that we do together. So it's not so much her way or my way. It is the way that we hold each other accountable to. And when we do it, because we both have big tempers and horrible mouths, we understand that there's a relationship in the middle of us that isn't her or me, isn't her love for me or my love for her. It is this thing we water. That's how people wind up madly in love, or loving each other madly, but not in love at all, because you didn't take care of the relationship. And the relationship can't survive a whole bunch of, oh yeah, well, your mama's alcoholic. What about that? A whole bunch of turning this into how can I hurt you instead of how can I help us or this. And it took the maturity of failed relationships on her end, my end, to get there. To when we disagree, we know, okay, put this monster in the cage. It ain't for her. Like my man Doc Joe said, who I am jealous because I want your hair and your beard and I can't grow either. Like he said, you bringing the street in the house, bruh. That's woo. This woman is not your enemy. As a matter of fact, she is your connection to the universe.
Right.
A woman sees shit you'll never see coming, bro.
So I want to, because we do. Yep. Thank you,
go ahead.
Jeff. That was Jeff. And somebody said, I love that recipe for love. It's a great relationship, a great way to start a relationship. Actually, Sunshine said that to her. I hope that's a great thing, Jeff. So thank you for that, Jewel. Sylvester, we have like 3 more minutes left. Actually, really only have 2. But Sylvester, I just want for you, because you are a gay man, how, and I know you have a child, so just a quick snip of like, how have your relationships as a Black man in dating other men, how has that transpired now?
So I was married for 11 years to another brother.
Okay.
I am presently single, and the dating game, as the other brother has described, is very true. The grass is not greener on the other side. There's absolutely nothing out there. It's really pathetic. However, one of the things is, when I was involved, it's not a compromise. It's very much a win-win situation. You're dealing with 2 individuals, especially 2 Black men, speaking for myself, with 2 different concepts and from 2 different cultures. I'm raised up in the Caribbean, and he was African American. And so we have differences of opinion, and it's not about who is right and who is wrong, but it's really a win-win situation where there is mutual respect. And regardless of your opinion, I've got your back unconditionally. And so that was very beautiful. The issue that occurred is the fact that as we get older, people desire different things. And so for me, I never desired and never will desire to be with a white man. Unfortunately, that was his craving. And the reality is I cannot be that. And so we went our separate ways.
Okay. All right. So really quick, round robin, 15 seconds. We're a little bit over. I just want to know, what do you want? And I'm speaking for a woman. What do you want people to take away from this conversation? Because this was rich. There was a lot of jewels here dropped. And I'm actually going to start with Jeff. Jeff, you got 15 seconds. You on mute.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Okay. Beautiful Black people. I speak of Black people in the first person all the time. Whenever you hear me speak, I'm talking directly to you. We are to take our cues from each other and from the universe, not from church, not from TV, not from movies. God is ready to talk to you, about you, to you, and about that other person you're supposed to be with.
Thank you, Jeff. Ronnie.
I would say be realistic and take a little bit more time to just be kind to yourself. And like Jeff said, letting go like your I guess your inner asshole. I agree with you. But
all right, young man.
But I also think you shouldn't let people change how you live your life. If you're a kind person, you should lead with that. Don't let people walk over you. But that goes with being honest with yourself. So how I started is how I end. Just find a way to be honest with yourself and everybody around you, and the rest will figure itself out.
Thank you. Keith, because I haven't had you. You haven't. I do want your perspective.
Oh, okay. I've been trying to let other brothers go for it. So for me, I think it's kind of what we talked about before. It's really, having a safe space to be able to express who you are. And when I say that, it's also that part, and also knowing who you are to be able to do it. Because we've kind of talked around, and I think Ronnie just mentioned it too, being honest with yourself, knowing who you are, and not being afraid to express who you are, and having the space to be able to do so. Maybe it's the barbershop, maybe it's your relationship, maybe it's your family, maybe it's your boys, but always find a spot to be you.
All right. Sylvester?
Just appreciate your Black men for who they are and what they represent, and allow them to be true, not only to themselves, but also to you. And live and let live.
Thank you, Sylvester. And Dr. Richardson, I'm going to let you take us out, babe.
I would say ultimately at the end, you need to just go with good energy. And I think we didn't talk enough about that, and like tapping into when we feel good energy and bad energy around us. But I'm definitely a believer in cutting off whatever negative energy is within my space and within my circle. And if that requires you to only be with one or two people that you feel that good energy coming from, then so be it. Because we have a lot of people that are draining us, that are in our orbit. And we need to really do an assessment of who is in that space that's draining our energy, and making sure that we can keep the most positive energy that we have around us at all times. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Y'all better. Thank y'all. We'll see y'all next week. Coming to the after party. Hope the gentlemen will be there. We're going to be there for about a couple of minutes. It's in the Facebook group. Grab the link. I will see y'all next week. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, JoJo. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Sylvester. Thank you, Jeff. Y'all were awesome. And my host, Keith. See y'all soon. Take care.
Yes. Thanks for having us.